to reach your goals. When we walk around in our life and we're so upset with every little thing that we do wrong, maybe you were raised to beat yourself up every time you made a mistake. That's what I have always done. Self-punishment and self-hatred are not helpful for our goals and for our life. If you're a business owner, you're going to do much better to actually encourage yourself and give yourself a high five when you mess up and make mistakes. Now listen, I'm not purporting that you purposefully go and try to do wrong and ill and hurt people or defraud people or lie about your intentions. Don't do that on purpose. But there's this thinking that our actions reveal our intentions. And so if we say we're going to do something and then we don't do it, there's this way of thinking that says that you should punish yourself as if you intentionally meant to do the thing even when you make a mistake. And that when you make a mistake, you need to harm yourself in order to teach yourself a lesson. I grew up with this type of thinking of physical harm, mental harm, and abuse for mistakes. It's not healthy. It's not helping anybody. It's not helping you do good or do the right thing. I get it. It might be your normal behavior. You don't know how to not do this. For the longest time, I didn't either. I even used to think that if I don't punish myself for the wrong that I do, like the mistakes I make equal wrong and evil and wicked behavior. This was stuff I used to tell myself, right? That the smallest mistake, I could forget to call you tomorrow and I would punish myself as the most wicked person on planet Earth. That had no care or regard for anybody's thoughts or emotion. How ridiculous is that? And yet many of us do that same thing. We make a mistake innocently, our heart is in the right place, and we beat ourselves up and we punish ourselves thinking that that's going to teach us a lesson to not do it again. Unfortunately, that's not even how brain chemistry and psychology works. When you punish yourself for doing and making a mistake, you're actually reinforcing yourself to make that mistake over and over again. Have you ever noticed that there's certain things that you actually struggle to overcome? Because when you beat yourself up for it, it actually creates a trigger in your brain to go back to that thing like an addiction. I don't know all the science behind it, but from what I gather is, let's say that you make a mistake all the time, right? And you just can't remember anything. And then you mentally hate yourself for that mistake, or you mentally abuse yourself for making that mistake. By self-punishing yourself, by self-berating yourself, you are actually wiring your brain to make sure that you actually keep doing that thing, so that you actually keep making that mistake, so that you actually keep doing the very thing that you want to stop doing. And some of you, it might be starting to make sense as to why there's certain things in your life that you are actually struggling to overcome, certain behaviors. Because every time you do that behavior and you beat yourself up for it, you are reinforcing to continue to do that behavior. It is not reinforcing for you to stop doing the behavior. It's actually reinforcing for you to keep doing the very thing that you want to quit. And so for me, the motivation to actually love myself and encourage myself comes from wanting to do my very best. And so when I make a mistake, I actually have to encourage myself. It's not natural for me because I've wired my brain to punish myself whenever I make a mistake. This is my natural behavior. But I know, and this is why calming yourself down is so important. I'll sit down and I'll even just meditate on peace and love and joy when I make mistakes. And this even goes as deep as behaviors that you don't like that you do. Maybe you find that you blow up at your kids or your spouse. Or maybe you find that you promise to do something and then don't end up doing it. That embarrassment that you have, while the embarrassment is natural, the shame from it, right? The guilt from it, that behavior reinforces for you to keep doing the very thing that you want to quit. And they've actually found this in addiction science, as well as with smokers and people that drink alcohol or are addicted to sugar, is that when you mentally berate yourself when you do that thing wrong, it actually reinforces you to go back to it again. Self-love and self-care are not woo-woo principles. They're actually how you can change your behavior in a positive way that you want to change. If there's something that you're doing constantly that you don't like, by encouraging yourself, by giving yourself a high five, literally, I want you to think about this. You promised to be home by 5 o'clock. Your wife is mad at you. You come home late. And you've said that you're going to stop coming home late all the time. You want to know what the right thing to do is? Give yourself a high five and say, you know what? I'm doing my very best. I'm doing my very best. You blow up at your kids. You blow up at your wife. You give yourself a high five and say, you know what? I'm doing my very best. I forgive myself for that behavior. And this right here, people don't like what I just said. People take what I just said to the extreme and come up with reasons why what I just said is unhealthy for families and systems. And I get it. I'm not purporting that you promise to do things and don't do them. I'm not encouraging you to be abusive to your family. You're not giving yourself a high five for the behavior. You're giving yourself a high five for the fact that you have compassion towards yourself, towards that part of you that is struggling. And you say, I love you, and you are awesome, and you are amazing, and you're giving it your best shot, and we're getting better 1% every single day, getting better 2% every single month. You might not be where you want to be, but you're getting further along than where you were before. And this concept is detailed in Mel Robbins' book, The High Five Habit. Her book, The 5-Second Rule, is absolutely incredible, but it'll leave you feeling guilt and shame when you're not doing enough. I'm so thankful for her that she wrote 2 books that almost juxtapose each other. They almost stand against each other, but when you understand these 2 rules, you have discipline to take quick action on the impulses that you have. The 5-second rule by Mel Robbins teaches to take quick action on your impulses. When I have an impulse to do something, to just do it right away, to not overthink it, to not analyze it, especially when it relates to your goals specifically. And it can also even help with negative behavior. When I have an impulse to stop a negative behavior, or I feel the impulse of a negative behavior, I actually can go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and choose to put up a stop sign. It's a really incredible concept, the 5-second rule, but it can leave you feeling shame when you don't live up to that standard. And so that's where her second book, The High Five Habit, is so amazing. Giving yourself a high five. She actually encourages you to go to a mirror in your house and stare at it and actually look deeply into your own eyes as if you're looking at a friend, as if you're looking at somebody that you truly love. And for many of us, that's hard to do. That was so hard for me. I started crying when I first did that. And when you really connect, you give yourself a high five physically in the mirror. I know it sounds silly, but it works. And you give yourself as many high fives as you need throughout the day. Encouraging yourself, loving yourself, being your biggest cheerleader, even when you make your greatest failures, is such a key to rising above, is looking at our mistakes as a teacher in our life and not saying, I hate the person that made that mistake, not saying that I don't like that person or that I'm judging harshly myself. Instead, I'm encouraging myself and saying, listen, Jeremiah, I get it. You're giving it your very best. You're doing your very best. I'm here to support you, and I'm here to love you, and I'm here to say, you are awesome, dude. And literally, when I start talking to myself that way and encouraging myself, even when I mess up, even when I make a mistake, it transforms everything about my life. The thought of doing this might trigger you negatively. You may believe that there's some bad that may come out of you doing this. And truly, it's because the brain is wired when things are that unfamiliar for itself. I used to think for about 6 years, my wife, when I first met her, encouraged me to do this. I've dealt with self-loathing, self-hatred for years. Anytime that I made a mistake, just beating myself up, punishing myself every time I did the wrong thing. And my wife always said, you need to be your biggest cheerleader. You need to stop trying to change your behavior by punishing yourself. And then it got even worse. I would start punishing myself for punishing myself. And it would be this cycle. And literally I got into this cycle of self-hatred and self-doubt and unbelief where nothing I did was good enough. And the rules of the high five habit have helped me. Literally, what are the rules? You encourage and love yourself as you would if you saw a young child. I got a young child on the way, a little baby on the way. When he makes a mistake, I'm not going to berate him. I'm going to encourage him and say, it's okay, buddy. It's okay. I got you. I got you. I love you. You're doing your best. Let's do it together. And yet, why don't we talk to ourselves that way? I'm sorry, I'm crying because it's true. It's time for you to start loving you. It's time for you to start respecting you. Get rid of the religious idea that it is wicked to love yourself. Many people take Bible verses like, in the last days there will be lovers of self, and they misinterpret it as what I've just told you equals wicked, violent behavior. I grew up in a church that used the Bible to abuse people. I don't believe that the message of the gospel is a message of punishment and hatred and hurting ourselves and hating that old self. Because my Bible says, for God so loved the world. God so loved us even in our old self. And that love and that open arm embrace, that's what we need, my friends. That's the thing, is the love of a father or a mother that looks down upon us and says, it's okay. It's gonna be okay. You're giving it your best shot. The intentions of your heart are what matter. Like if the intentions of your heart are to hurt people and to do violence and evil, like that's a different story. I'm not even talking about that. But I don't think if you're watching this right now, that's you. I don't think if you're watching this right now, that's you. And there's this twisted thinking that we're bad people, that we're terrible people. You want to know what the truth is? God has never once been disappointed in his children. God has never once been disappointed in us when we make mistakes. And yet we act like we need to be disappointed in ourselves when we mess up. And so I want to challenge you, whether you agree with everything that I just said or not. That's not really what's up for question here. It's the high five habit of encouraging yourself when you mess up, when you make a mistake, embracing yourself with love and compassion, even when you do horrible things like that you don't like. Like I don't like it if I mess up and I raise my voice when I'm talking with my wife. And to be honest, when we first got married, I raised my voice a lot. It was me crying out because I didn't feel heard. And I've had to learn that, first off, that ain't how to communicate, right? I just look like an idiot when I do that. Her and I aren't going to connect around that. I don't connect when people raise their voice at me. Why do we think that raising our voice at ourselves or others is going to help? And yet we still make that mistake, right? Because we're human. It was actually this habit of encouraging myself that helped me break the pattern of actually raising my voice with my wife. It was actually this habit that got me building my business to where we were making over $160,000 a month. In my coaching business, I was struggling to make $1,000 to $1,500. And since doing this behavior of encouraging myself, accepting myself, and loving myself, it's changed everything in my entire life. And I know that it will change everything for you as well if you just start doing it. It's not going to be perfect. You're going to mess up. You're not going to do it every single day. Listen, Last week, I struggled to do it a few times. Actually, let's be real. I struggled to do it a lot of times last week. It was pretty rough. I started operating out of my old way of thinking of whatever people say about me is true. I had a lot of people on social media telling me that I was a terrible person for some of the things that I was saying. I started becoming even defensive inside because of it. And what shifted everything in an instant is realizing, listen, I made some mistakes last week. I messed up. And I'm going to continue to mess up. And I'm going to make mistakes every single day. I made a mistake on my Black Friday sale. I spelled something wrong. But every time I encourage myself, it gets better. Instead of beating yourself up when you mess up, when you make a mistake, and getting angry at yourself and feeling shame for not doing the right thing, encourage yourself that you're giving it your best and that you believe in yourself and that you know that you can accomplish every goal that you have. If you get one thing out of this today, I want you to believe that any dream you have, you can accomplish. Any goal you have, you can manifest in your life. But it starts with loving yourself first. Listen, follow my page, follow my YouTube, subscribe. We got 190 podcast episodes for coaches, trainers, and mentors that want to grow in their business and make more money. We built our business to millions of dollars online, and I want to show you how you can do so as well. It's all free on YouTube and on my podcast to help you. Just look up Jeremiah Krakowski or hashtag Grow Your Life,